All right, class. We've been doing ancient Mesopotamia, but we are doing a time jump to the Middle Ages. Now we're going to go back and we're going to cover ancient Rome. We're going to cover ancient Egypt, and a couple other things before this. But we're going to skip ahead to the Middle Ages and the feudal system. We're going to talk about it, and we're going to talk about several different things with the Middle Ages. This today is just an overview of things we're going to talk about. But the Middle Ages, it was a time period from 500 A.D. to about 1500 A.D. And it happened right after the fall of the Roman Empire. And most of the time I go in order with these things when I'm teaching. But like I said, I'm doing a time jump. I really like the Middle Ages. That's what we're going to cover for right now. But that's what we're talking about today: the Middle Ages and some things that we're going to cover in this unit. So the Middle Ages and medieval times, it was a long period. It was from 500 AD to 1500 AD. Like I said, it was right after the fall of the Roman Empire when it occurred, and that was in 476 AD. So here we go.
1,000 years. The Middle Ages or medieval times in Europe was a long period of history from 500 AD to 1500 AD. That's 1,000 years. It covers the time from the fall of the Roman Empire to the rise of the Ottoman Empire.
So medieval times, it was a time of castles. You know, you had peasants, guilds, monasteries, cathedrals, crusades. You had Joan of Arc, who's pictured up here, and we'll talk about her later on in this unit. Then you had Charlemagne. He was part of the Middle Ages, and you had the major events such as the Black Plague and the rise of Islam, and we'll talk about both of those in this unit. The Black Plague was something that it wiped out. It coincides kind of with what's going on with our pandemic today, a little bit. It's it wiped out 2/3 of the population of Europe. So it's a little bit similar. I'm not saying it's exactly like what's going on with the COVID-19 thing, but it's a little bit similar with that to what's happening today. In my opinion, the Black Plague, or the Black Death, as they called it, was a whole lot worse. You had no kind of cure, nothing, and if you got it within days, you were dying.
A different time. This was a time of castles and peasants, guilds and monasteries, cathedrals and crusades. Great leaders such as Joan of Arc and Charlemagne were part of the Middle Ages, as well as major events such as the Black Plague and the rise of Islam.
All right. So Middle Ages, medieval times, Dark Ages, what's the difference? Well, when people use the terms medieval times or Middle Ages and Dark Ages, they're generally referring to the same time period. All right. The Dark Ages is referred to at the first half of the Middle Ages, from 500 AD to 1000 AD. For 500 years, basically, it was the Dark Ages. And the reason being, which I'll get to on the next slide, but I want to kind of touch on it here. The reason being is because they lost history. They lost everything. When Rome was attacked, everything was lost. You lost art, you lost history, you lost records, you lost a lot of different things. And nobody during that time period was really recording a whole lot. So it's kind of called the Dark Ages.
Middle Ages, medieval times, Dark Ages. What's the difference? When people use the terms Middle Ages or medieval times, Middle Ages and Dark Ages, they're generally referring to the same period of time. The Dark Ages is usually referring to the first half of the Middle Ages from 500 to 1000 AD.
So after the fall of the Roman Empire, a lot of Roman culture and knowledge was lost, like I said. All right, this included art, technology, engineering, history. Historians know a lot about Europe during the Roman Empire because of all the good records they kept. Well, those records were lost after that, from 500 AD to 1000 AD. And not many people kept records anymore when you began the Middle Ages, and it was because it wasn't one big empire anymore. They were all separated, kind of like with Mesopotamia and the city-states. Okay, everything was separated. You had kings ruling all over the place. It wasn't all under one big empire.
History lost. After the fall of the Roman Empire, a lot of the Roman culture and knowledge was lost. This included art, technology, engineering, and history. Historians know a lot about Europe during the Roman Empire because of the Romans kept excellent records of all that happened.
So the time after the Roman is dark to historians because there's no central government recording events. Nobody was recording events. Like I said, the governments were broken up. They were broken up. You had a king over here that ruled one piece of land, and you had another king over here that ruled another piece of land. And then, like I said, it was a lot like Mesopotamia. They found out more about Mesopotamia after they started writing down things. And so they know more about it then than they do the earlier times in Mesopotamia. So this is the same way with the Middle Ages. They know more in the later times in the Middle Ages than they do then because there wasn't really any central government recording all these events.
History loss continued. However, the time after the Romans is dark to historians because there's no central government recording events. This is why historians call this time the Dark Ages.
And here's a timeline and overview. If you look right here, you know, you've got the Middle Ages. It tells you all about it. You got the Holy Roman Empire and all this. But this is going to go over a little bit of our timeline. What we're going to go over some of the things in this timeline from 500 AD to 1500 AD. It's based on certain things that specifically happened in Europe, but during that time.
Timeline and overview. Although the term Middle Ages covers the years between 500 and 1500 throughout the world, this timeline is based on events specifically in Europe during that time.
All right, so 476, you had the fall of the Roman Empire. Rome had ruled a lot of Europe. Okay, now much of the land would fall into confusion. Local kings and rulers, they were grabbing for power. Okay, all right, and then you wound up having kings and rulers every which way. All right, not just one central ruler. All right, this was the start of the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages.
Timeline continued. 476, the fall of the Roman Empire. Rome had ruled much of Europe. Now much of the land would fall into confusion as local kings and rulers tried to grab power. This is the start of the Dark Ages or the Middle Ages.
All right, then you got Charlemagne the king here. He was the king of France. He was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 800, and we will talk about him next week. As we get through the feudal system, we'll go into him first. And he was crowned Holy Roman Emperor, but it was just a title. All right. And we'll get more into that as we talk about it. But he united much of Western Europe and is considered the father of both the French and the German monarchies.
Charlemagne, 800, Charlemagne, king of the Franks, is crowned Holy Roman Emperor. Charlemagne united much of Western Europe and is considered the father of both the French and the German monarchies.
All right, then you had Alfred the Great pictured here. This is Alfred the Great. He was the king of England, and he turned back the Viking invaders in around, I guess it was 899, I believe it was. But we'll get to that. When we get to him, we'll talk more about him. And then in 1096, you had the start of the First Crusades, and the Crusades were wars between the Holy Roman Empire and the Muslims over the Holy Land. They were fighting over the Holy Land. Whose land is this? Over the Holy Land. The Holy Land was over in Islam. It was over in the Islamic land. It was, or Muslim land, and that went on for a couple of 100 years, this battle, and we'll go over some of the Crusades, what they were fighting over, and everything in this unit.
Alfred the Great, 896. Alfred the Great, king of England, turns back the Viking invaders. 1096 started the First Crusade. The Crusades were wars between the Holy Roman Empire and the Muslims over Holy Land. There would be several crusades over the next 200 years.
All right, 1337, you had the 100 Years' War between England and France, two different countries, all right? And it was for control of the French throne. It went on for almost 100 years. That's why it's called the 100 Years' War. We're going to talk about that. I mentioned the Black Death or the Black Plague. before. We're going to talk about that. It began in Europe, and the horrible disease, it wiped out half the people, or 2/3 of the people in Europe. So, and then we have Joan of Arc down here, or up here. She was executed by England at the age of 19. She was with the French, and thought she saw visions from God that told her different things. And we're going to talk about her. So, you know, all these are going to be mixed in. Plus, we're going to have a whole lot more than just these that I'm going over. It's just some I'm showcasing.
Joan of Arc and the 100 Years' War. 1337, the 100 Years' War begins between England and France for control of the French throne. 1347, the Black Death begins in Europe. This horrible disease would kill around half of the people in Europe. In 1431, French heroine Joan of Arc is executed by England at the age of 19.
All right. So what event signaled the start of the Middle Ages? Was it A, the fall of Rome, B, Mesopotamia, or C, Sargon the Great? It was A, the fall of Rome. The fall of Rome signaled the start of the Middle Ages.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 2, does the Dark Ages refer to the first half or the second half of the Middle Ages? The Dark Ages refers to the first half, period between 500 AD and 1000 AD. It refers to the first half of the Middle Ages.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Why is it called the Dark Ages? It's called the Dark Ages because because there wasn't many records kept in that time period, because all the governments were split up. All the kings, they had different people grasping for power and different kings. So, number 3, who was crowned Holy Roman Emperor in 800? A, the Crusades, B, Odoacer, or C, Charlemagne? C, Charlemagne is the answer. We'll talk more about him next week.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 4, this was the war between Muslims and Christians over Holy Land. Was it A, Harper's Ferry, B, the Crusades, or C, the Civil War? It is B, the Crusades. That was a war between Muslims and Christians over Holy Land, and we will talk more about it as we progress in this unit.
We have a winner.
And number 5, what years do the Middle Ages cover? What years do the Middle Ages cover? A, 500 AD to 1500 AD, B, 1900 to 2020, or C, 1800 to 1900? The answer is A, 500 AD to 1500 AD. That's what the Middle Ages cover, 1,000 years.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
All right, folks, we are going to be covering this and talking more about it. I'll be back with our next Middle Ages lesson. We're going to go into the feudal system and see how it worked, and be sure to go through Schoology, answer your questions, get credit for it, and I will see you next time.